This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts may say they're going on a fishing trip, but we actually just want to fish. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and from the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I am your host, Ben Miller. I write and podcast about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association as well as the International Film Society Critics. I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. It was funny, of all the things from this film that we'll definitely get into, the thing I was thinking that would stick with you the most. It's like, you went on all those fishing trips and never fished. What a missed opportunity. Like,
yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, well, if it's good fishing territory, I mean, you could take a break.
It doesn't have to be.
I've gone on fishing trips with my wife.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
still fish. Yeah.
Yeah. We still did a little fishing. They both start with F, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. As obviously guessed from that opening, the film we're talking about today is Brokeback Mountain, the 2005 romance drama. It's directed by Ang Lee, written by Larry McMurtry and Diana Osana, based on the short story by Annie Proulx, starring Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal, Michelle Williams, Anne Hathaway, and a host of character actors that keep popping up: Randy Quaid, Linda Cardellini, Anna Faris, David Harbour, Kate Mara. It opened at the Venice International Film Festival on September 2nd, 2005, went wide to the world in December 9th, 2005. It came out as a kind of a indie movie that nobody was really expecting to make any money. Made $83 million domestically, and a pretty good haul international as well. $178 million on a $14 million budget. Rotten Tomatoes critics were very kind. 88% with critics, 82% with audiences. Kind of rare with a gay themed movie. You expect some sort of disconnect, but they were pretty much on the same page. Pretty consistent across it. Nominated for 8 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director for Ang Lee, Best Actor for Heath Ledger, Best Supporting Actor for Jake Gyllenhaal, supporting actress for Michelle Williams, Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography, and Original Score. It won 3. Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Original Score. It famously lost Best Picture to Crash in 2005 at the Oscars. It was a very big deal at the time. Exactly. See, you are the perfect example of
Crash.
Well, you know, half of film Twitter would love to be you right now. What is Crash? It's the one in LA with all the it's a star-studded racial ideal of people going in. Sandra Bullock and Matt Dillon.
Okay, I didn't. Okay, that's all right.
Yeah,
that's all right.
So we will start to get into this into greater detail. Jake, would you be so kind as to give us a general plot summary for Brokeback Mountain?
Sure. So there are two cowboys, and the part of the country I'm in, I understand these types. I mean,
yeah, sure.
You know, there's just hardworking dudes that are willing to take up a job and go do it. So 2 guys get hired on by Randy Quaid.
Yes.
Or I should say his character, he plays a boss of a sheep herding deal, and so they run sheep, and they have to kind of bed them down and let them feed up in Brokeback Mountain, so they gotta stay with them up there, and so it's two guys and I believe it starts in like 1963 where it's set.
I believe that is correct. Yeah, Wyoming in 1963. That's yes.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, Wyoming 1963, probably not to disparage Wyoming, but it wasn't exactly, they weren't having pride parades at that point.
Very much so. Correct. Yes.
Anyways, so these guys develop a friendship, and that soon turns romantic. They both end up married and having kids, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. You can kind of see where they have to take on their, their personal, their public persona. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
And then, but yeah, I mean, I think at some point they both figure out they're gay and they're in a intense gay relationship and love each other. I mean, genuinely love each other and miss each other.
Without a doubt. Yes.
It's not just a sex deal or anything like that. But anyways, so they're off in the middle of nowhere, and the things that happen are the things that happen. But something that I found touching was, it was always, this is the first time I saw this was before this review. And to me, it was, whenever this came out, it was always the gay cowboy movie.
Yeah.
The scary gay cowboy movie,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't watch it because,
Sure.
of that, I just didn't. But after watching it, I'm glad I did. Anyways, sorry, I went on a tangent.
No,
but
of course.
Anyways, so they develop a very strong relationship. It's contentious at times. But yeah, at home, they both carry on this facade of being married, having kids, things like that. But, really they're in love with the other guy. Well, rumors start up. The guy who plays their boss, Randy Quaid, sees them kind of wrestling around out in a pasture or something, and rumors start flying. Well, this goes over the course of
20 years. 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So it spans at least a couple decades of them going through this double life, basically. The wives end up finding out, and I think other people in their communities end up finding out. And then basically something very bad happens to Jake Gyllenhaal, and Heath Ledger just kind of keeps on trying to act like keeps
up
trying to
appearance.
hide.
Yep.
Yeah, keeps up appearances. Perfect. And and that's kind of where it ends.
Pretty much,
I mean,
yeah.
It ends very sadly, and I
Not
mean,
exactly the most heartwarming of films.
No, and after I watched it, I came away sad. I came away mad.
Sure.
And my third takeaway was, I would compare this to, sorry, I'm probably getting ahead of myself.
No, go ahead.
I would compare this to movies such as Boy in the Striped Pajamas or Taking Chance. Really well done movies, important movies, but not a feel good that you want to sit down and
You're not going to sit down every month, watch
great.
and rewatch Brokeback Mountain.
Right. No. Yeah. I've seen Boy in the Striped Pajamas once. I thought it was great. It was well done.
Never want to watch it
see
again.
it again.
I agree.
Chance, similar.
Yeah, there are
And
a
I
lot of
felt
those.
that way about this. Yeah, it's so heavy that it's just tough to come home on a Saturday night and go, hey,
Yeah.
let's spin this one up.
Yeah, I mean, so in prep for this pod, I had watched it for the second time ever. I watched it in the theater back in 2005, and in the theater in 2005, I'm like, wow, this is really good. And I kind of came away with after coming away with it, like, man, that was kind of heavy, and I just never really thought to get back to it. And like you said, it's not one that is, even the gay themed movies. I'll use an example: Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It's about a bunch of Australian drag queens, but it's fun. It's light. Like, that's something you could rewatch and revisit everything like that. Even it kind of falls under the same thing. I'm not sure if you've seen Moonlight, but it's similar as far as theme wise, like a gay man trying to come to terms with things and living in that life. And it's not, it never came across as heartwarming. I'm not jazzed to go see it again. So, but it's always, sometimes you get a parts of those type of films like this. I'd really like to start on the most interesting part of the film for me is another part that makes you sad is that you're watching Heath Ledger the whole time. You're just watching this young, fresh-faced kid. And I mean, he does such a good job of the word I keep thinking of whenever I see him, especially with it, like his tight-lipped demeanor and kind of his stern, his kind of inwardly is repression. He's just repressed. Like he doesn't have the ability to live the way he wants to live. And it's so internalized. And I mean,
it comes out as almost violent.
Yeah.
Whenever he's able to express it. I mean, I think a lot of times, like whenever him and Jake Gyllenhaal's Jack Twist get back together, you almost see violence. Yeah. As they're almost resisting it. Mm-hmm. As they kind of
very violent. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Also, and even comes out in other parts, not even trying to resist it. Like when they're at the 4th of July parade and some guys are speaking up language wise and just gives an opportunity for him to beat the hell out of the guys. Or whenever essentially after they've been divorced, him and Alma, Michelle Williams, they have a kind of a spat over Thanksgiving. He leaves, he goes to a bar, and he's in the middle of the street and almost gets hit by a car. Well, his first reaction is to go try to beat the hell out of the driver. It's just the natural reaction to it. It's a good way to put it. Ledger, obviously, he still did movies for another 3 years, obviously, passed away in 2008, prior to the release of The Dark Knight. Won the Oscar for The Dark Knight, got an Oscar nomination for this film. It's like you said, it's just the sadness and anger. It's just like, man, this guy is so fresh faced. And even though he ages throughout the 20 years, you're like, man, this guy had such potential and he was so good at what he did. And I really was impressed. Heath Ledger is always the main takeaway I come from this movie is like, man, he is so good at what he does. I watched it with my wife, and she was really annoyed at the way he talks. Kind of
clean slip.
Yeah, it's almost
that old
Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes.
Just a straighter version of that. I mean, by straighter, I mean a more. I
don't think you understood what happened in the movie, Ben.
A more fleshed out version of it.
I get it.
So his character is so interesting because of his journey. We follow him so much more than we do Jack, but we still follow Jack independently as on its own because we essentially. I'm not about to diagnose sexuality based off of a movie, but it seems like Innes Del Mar is Heath Ledger's character. It seems like Innes is more of a I would probably lean more towards bisexual because he seeks out female relationships, and the only male relationship he has is with Jack. And he doesn't really go around looking for things. while Jack is more outwardly like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm mostly attracted to men, but I'm keeping up this facade of women,
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What? So
And also,
go ahead.
I also think Jack Twist has more of an appearance to keep up with.
Yes.
In some ways.
Yes.
Even though maybe he's not, I don't know. It kind of seems like Heath Ledger's character's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna go out and cowboy, and that's the way it is. Whereas Jack Twist has to keep up with appearances as far as, hey, I married the barrel racing champion, and she, her dad,
Yeah.
Was selling these
We live this big house.
tractors.
Yeah.
So he almost has more of the appearance to keep up, whereas
Yeah.
Heath Ledger is like, I'm fine being in a, trailer house,
Trailer,
and
yeah,
cowboying.
Yeah.
And when we get back together, then
That's what it is.
but,
Yeah. At the same time, they Heath Ledger's Enos makes pointed comments to it multiple times, essentially saying it's like, this is dangerous. It's like, yeah, we might love each other, but this is a dangerous thing. Like, he witnessed essentially a lynching of a gay man, or the aftermath of a lynching of a gay man when he was young, and that obviously had a lasting impression on him. So it's one of those things that always sticks in your mind. Jake Gyllenhaal, while Heath Ledger is all reserved and more insular, Jake Gyllenhaal's Jack Twist is much more outgoing and cruising is probably the wrong word. But the difference is whenever they first meet, they're waiting outside the trailer to go in to meet the boss. Heath Ledger's got his head down. He's like, I'm waiting for this job. I'm ready to start this job. And Jack is more like, okay, I like this guy. Is there something about it that it can be done? And he more actively pursues. He goes to Mexico to meet prostitutes.
Yes.
A coworker as well also develops a relationship with. So what is your Jake Gyllenhaal feelings in general? Not this performance is outside of this performance. What's your Jake Gyllenhaal feelings? Everybody always has feelings.
Outside of this performance, just as an actor?
Yeah, just in general as an actor.
I think he's good. I mean, I think he's played very complex characters.
Very.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can appreciate his diversity, and even, I mean, when did this movie come out?
2005.
All right. So even at that time, two big name actors saying, all right, I'll take that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll make out with the guy, and I'll have sex scenes
have a sex scene. Exactly. Yeah.
That was pretty courageous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think. I mean, just to take on those roles.
Yeah.
So I think Jake Gyllenhaal's good at taking on conflicted roles.
Yeah.
What was the movie he was in?
Nightcrawler.
Detective.
Prisoners is what you're thinking of, I think. Yes.
Yes. Very conflicted character, and then Nightcrawlers. Very hard to. So, no, I think he does great. And he's just about anything. I think he's a good actor.
He's a fascinating character. He can really, when he decides to do something, he really goes for it. Like he'll make a choice and just push forward on that, no matter how wacky it is. And this film is, I think Jack as a character in general is one that could very easily come across as incredibly unlikable, but in the wrong circumstances, Jack could come over and you'd be like, man, this guy is just kind of a turd to everybody. Nobody really likes him. It's pretty much just him and Ennis, and everybody else just kind of like puts up with him. But I think it's a really interestingly tricky role. Yeah. All right. So obviously Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal are a big part of this film, but just as important are the ladies behind them. Michelle Williams playing Enos, the wife to, playing Alma, the wife to Enos, and then Anne Hathaway as well, playing Lorene, the wife to Jake Gyllenhaal. Both kind of interesting parts of their career, because some people were aware of Michelle Williams. I know how big of a fan you were of Dawson's Creek. I know you were a big Dawson's Creek guy, obviously. Michelle Williams Michelle Williams coming off that, Anne Hathaway kind of starting to break out of teenage roles, and then coming into more adult films. So Michelle Williams got an Oscar nomination. Anne Hathaway didn't really have a ton to do in this film, besides just kind of stand there and look pretty. What are your thoughts on Michelle Williams?
I think she does a good job of being like someone that's so conflicted. And this isn't a criticism of Anne Hathaway's performance, but I feel like Anne Hathaway's character was much more cut and dry. She was like,
yeah, okay,
like, all right,
not really much to her. Yeah.
So I think she did a better job or I won't say she did a better job.
I
would say it's a more complex character in terms of, trying to maintain a marriage and figure this out. And she goes into kind of detective mode, rigging a note up to his fishing line and stuff like that. Whereas I think Anne Hathaway's character, again, not to take away from performances, but she's more like, I got daddy's money and
it's okay.
You're not fitting the role here. And so so I feel like Heath Ledger's wife's character as an actress, had more on her plate.
There's a lot more substance there. Yeah, I agree. It's funny because it's right on the balance of, early 60s to mid 70s. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but she's never, it's very easy to see her as a character who's just a timid little wife who essentially does whatever her husband says. And a lot of times she does, but eventually she gets to the point where like, okay, I'm not going to have this anymore, and does end up divorcing him, where Anne Hathaway's character is very much just like, it doesn't really matter. Not really. Like
right.
I mean, might be more of appearances. Outside
less of a personal loss to her, and she's more concerned with, keeping up with. Yeah, she would rather the reputation of her husband be that he died because a tire blew up on the side.
Changing a tire. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the story it goes with. Yeah. I mean, and the power that's associated with that. That's an interesting side note of that. We'll get into the ending as we go along. We have some interesting thoughts on that, but the supporting cast of this film is really interesting, just because every time you see somebody, some other character pop in, you're like, hey, I know them. Hey, I know them. Obviously, Randy Quaid right at the beginning. Go ahead, please.
Just add something.
Yes.
Did anyone else find the humor and the irony of Randy Quaid being in this movie, and the other role I find him so iconic in is one in which he says, "Shitter's full."
I mean,
if he said that in this movie,
it really throw it off. Outside of Randy Quaid's numerous interesting philosophical ideals these days, which if anybody wants to Google, it's
I heard a blurb that he got in trouble or
he's
something.
he has some interesting ideas. Fun fact, Randy Quaid sued the movie after it came out. He said the producers let him on this was going to be an independent little movie that didn't make any money, and therefore lowballed his offer. So in other words, they're like, hey, this is going to be a little cheap thing, so you don't need any money. And then it went on to make almost $200 million, and then I think he sued. I think it was settled, but regardless, David Harbour popping up in this film as a potential paramour for another affair for Jake Gyllenhaal. He's having quite the moment with all the Stranger Things stuff. I personally don't watch Stranger Things, so I see him as the character actor he is in 1,000 other things. You always see him throughout the years. And then his wife, played by Anna Faris, former Miss Chris Pratt from Mom, and then Linda Cardellini from Dead to Me, and more obviously the thing that everybody knows her as, Velma from the live action Scooby-Doo, as the nice waitress. and then Kate Mara as Heath Ledger's daughter. Another one of those. It's been 17 years since this movie came out, and everybody I see in this movie, like, everybody looks so young and fresh faced, and they're so alive. Okay, I have a little just kind of a straw quiz for you. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you the five choices, and you have to pick a lady from this movie that you would prefer to pursue. So your 5 choices are Alma, played by Michelle Williams; Lorene, played by Anne Hathaway; Cassie, the waitress, played by Linda Cardellini; LaShawn, the talkative wife to David Harbour, played by Anna Faris; or I'll even throw Kate Mara in there for good measure, since she was getting married at the end of the movie. So what is your personal opinion?
Yeah. On this subject, I will say that whenever Anne Hathaway's titties come out in the back of a car, I went, thank God, some tits.
So
Sorry.
that's
not to be disparaging. I'm
no,
just not gay, and
I think that's an interesting aspect of it, because I think, this is a mainstream movie, and even though it's it was considered independent, this is have a Hollywood. It's made in the Hollywood system, and to the idea of that being that, okay, it's going to be a gay movie, we can't just have be fully gay. Essentially, this is in the minds of producers, and there's like, okay, how about we throw some nudity in there, keep everybody happy? Probably. Generally, that's in both cases. Michelle Williams also nude at various points in the movie. In both cases, completely unnecessary. Like,
oh yeah, no, it's just superfluous. Like, all right, like, yeah, I think like the director, producer, writer, someone was like, all right, to the guy eating popcorn in the movie theater right now,
this one's for you.
Yeah, here you go. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the producer choice on that one, probably. Yeah, that sounds like something along the lines. So Anne Hathaway's yours. So she's so cute, and the idea of the waitress, played by Linda Cardellini, she was just like, hey, you want a good night? Let's go to a bar, hang out, dance, do nothing. Like, you are giving me nothing personality, Enos, and I am still on board with this. Like, she's always my choice.
That's when you know you're gay. So.
Whenever you're just like, hey, this perfect woman, it's like, you know what? Maybe I don't want this. Yeah, that's it.
Like, I just want to go roll in the sack. And he's like, nah. It's like, well, yeah. I think, and again, I never mean anything
Of course.
disparagingly or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think that's a good straight or gay test.
It's just how willing are you to do nothing to like, well, this lady's throwing it at me, and I'm just like, yeah, it's a good point.
Eh,
Okay, we want
go fishing.
we're going to introduce we did a variation on this last week, but I'm going to introduce the official name of it. This is a segment called Poll for a Dumbass. This is where I ask Jake essentially I take a poll of a filmography of a director or actor, and then he kind of goes through and sees how many of these films he's actually seen. Last week, I really blew his mind with Robert Zemeckis and all the films he had done.
Yeah.
This week, I probably expect the opposite to happen. I'm going to go through the filmography of director Ang Lee. Oscar winner twice, including once for this movie. Now, he is Chinese, so he did or is actually born in Taiwan, but he started internationally, so he had a couple really well regarded international films: Pushing Hands, The Wedding Banquet, Eat Drink Man Woman. I'm not going to bring up those because the fact that the chances of you seeing those are slim to none. I have also not seen any of these, so those will not be included. We are just going to go with his English language films. All right, starting with 1995 with his English language debut, the Jane Austen adaptation Sense and Sensibility. Okay. 1997 marital drama, The Ice Storm.
No.
Okay. 1999 famous box office bomb revisionist Western, Ride with the Devil.
Nope.
Okay. So I guarantee right now we're 0 for 3 in even hearing of these. Mm-hmm. So we finally got to the one where you might have seen it. 2000's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I have heard of it. I never watched it.
Okay. 0 for 4. 2003, the most mainstream he has ever gotten. The original Hulk with Eric Bana and Nick Nolte. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're up to our first one before Brokeback Mountain, of course. Brokeback Mountain in 2005. 2007, back to Taiwan, Lust Caution. Nope. Exactly. Okay. 2009 goes indie, not very successfully, Taking Woodstock.
Nope.
Okay. Now, his other Oscar win for Best Director, 2012's Life of Pi.
Yes. And
okay.
I watched that one and for the most part enjoyed it.
Pretty enjoyable, I agree. 2016, the technical misfire, but regardless, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. I would imagine you would have probably known that one. Okay. And most recently, 2019, dual Will Smith starring Gemini Man.
No. I've never even heard of that.
See, this is why we do this, because Jake is as common as it comes. And obviously Jake is a big fan of Lust Caution and stuff like that. So, heard of Crouching Tiger, haven't seen it, watched Hulk, and Life of Pi, and besides that, have not heard of any others.
Nope.
That's an impressive number, actually.
I hope he's doing better in Taiwan.
Okay, so this movie made a lot of money. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was a monster success. Hulk, despite being kind of a critical mess, made plenty of money. So he's probably doing okay. And
I liked it, but I was a late teenager, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a pull for a dumbass, and that's the reason, because we have things like this. Because whenever you think of Ang Lee's filmography, Jake is the first name you think of. Now, Jake, you have something for me as well, right?
So yeah, obviously the majority of questions come my direction. So I figured we'd have a little session called the Hot Box.
Hoo-hoo.
Ben,
Yes,
you are now in the Hot Box.
I am ready.
All right, so you have to answer these questions honestly.
Okay.
They may be personal, or they may be movie related.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Number 1. When's the last time you shit your pants? People want to know.
Oh, who knows? You know,
So
we've
I can
all
tell you exactly when I last shit my pants.
Oh, this is what the people want. I'm gonna go on a limb and say it was probably, I don't know, 18 months ago. Everybody gets sick every once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just wanted to humble you a little bit. Okay. I'm the common man. You're the film critic. You're big and fancy.
The advantage is I have full editing capabilities, so I can.
That's true.
But regardless, let's continue.
Folks, we all have accidents. Moving on. Number 2.
Yes.
Have you ever walked out of a movie in theaters?
So that's a fun question because I have interesting side note to this. There are 2 times in my entire life I've walked out of a movie, and the first time it was not my choice. It was 28 days later. I was with my girlfriend at the time. She did not know what the movie was. She was ultimately terrified, and we had to leave, and she was on the verge of having a panic attack. But that's not really on the same thing. Now, the other one
Why
I've ever
didn't that work out between y'all? She sounds like a gem.
We were young. So the other one was a Jake Gyllenhaal film. It was called Brothers. Interesting, with Tobey Maguire and Natalie Portman. It's a film based off of a book. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Anyway, so I had anticipated to watch this, and I watched it through through probably, I don't know, an hour of it, and then I decided for some reason before the movie to get a hot dog at the movie theater. That was a poor decision. And so I spent the next 45 minutes in the bathroom.
Yeah.
We almost are.
My first question.
We almost are. It was almost to that point, and it was every time I'm like, okay, I can go back and watch the rest of this movie, and then after a while, I'm like, I'm not going back in there, so I'm going to watch that. So, no. As far as quality wise, I have seen. They're some of the worst movies I've ever seen. I've still stuck it out. I've seen terrible kids movies. I've seen Hilary Duff movies that were like bad Hilary Duff movies, not like, oh, like, remember Hilary Duff's fun? Nope. Like romantic comedies, terrible sci-fi movies, Gods and Generals, still sitting out through 4 hours of Gods and Generals. We have fond memories of that one. I've never walked out of a movie because of quality.
Okay, so you've walked out due to being a victim of circumstance.
Correct. Yes. Never by my own choice. Yes.
Gotcha. Not because of the movie in and of itself.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. This also kind of ties in.
Okay.
All right. So you're going to watch a movie in theaters.
Okay.
What is your go-to snack beverage combo to sit down and watch a good movie?
Okay, so this is always based off of the movie theater, because if you're in just a theater that just you sit down in and you go to convenience, so let's split that in two. So in theory, if I'm watching a movie with somebody else, I probably just generally I would think of that in those terms. But if it's just a regular movie theater, sit in a seat, watch, it would probably be a cherry icy, and popcorn's usually mandatory. If I had my choice of food, of candy, it would be Raisinets. That's the go-to. Now, if it's one of those that they serve you at your seats, it would definitely be one. Pretzel bites with honey mustard. That's my go-to, and a nice tall pitcher of whatever alcoholic beverage they happen to be serving, probably some sort of beer.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
I fell under such pressure.
Yeah. Well, you should. You're in the hot box, but so.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. What's the worst airport in the world?
This is a loaded question, Jake. You know this, and I know this. It's the Frankfurt. It's the airport in Frankfurt, Germany, because we lived overseas as children and as teenagers, and we had to make a trek. Me, you, and our other brother, and we were just by ourselves, and we ended up in the Frankfurt airport with 7 different switch gates within a couple of hours. I believe you were sick.
I was sick.
Yeah, I mean, so that was
I was the captain trying to run the ship.
You were in charge of it all, yes, because you're the oldest. So
incapacitated.
But yes, I've heard terrible things about Atlanta. I've heard Denver's bad. I've heard all these things. I don't think that matters because the Frankfurt airport takes the cake.
It has to.
Has to. Yes.
Has to. All right. All right. To get back to movies.
Okay.
Favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie?
Ooh, that is a good one. So it's probably North by Northwest.
Okay.
Which I always like his Cary Grant collaborations. I think those two always just get each other on the same thing. That being said, Notorious is probably a close second. It's probably one of his underseen ones, probably the lowest stakes and less, I mean, a lot of obviously people have seen Notorious, but that's a really great Claude Rains performance. So gun to my head, North by Northwest, you could talk me into Notorious. I also do love Rebecca.
Okay.
This is riveting. I'm ready. What do you got?
In your opinion, saddest movie ever? Since we're on a sad movie train here.
Yes, we are. Okay, now are we talking about emotion or just like I want to die? Like, do you know what I mean? Like
just most depressing.
Okay. It's probably now there's a couple films that I have on unfortunately a list that I need to watch. It's just like it's terrible and it's going to get you sad. The one that always pops in my head, there's two actually. One is Requiem for a Dream. Just it's heroin addiction and addiction in general and the consequences of it, and it doesn't end great for anybody. But maybe one that you have seen, how about The Mist?
Yeah.
I mean, the ending of The Mist is just so devastating and bleak.
It is, but that's the only reason The Mist exists.
Exactly.
For the ending.
The entire time you're like, oh wow, kind of like fun little horror things, the interesting dynamics in there, and then the ending comes, you're like, wow. Yeah, that's
it's kind of a B film, like, okay, special effects suck, and but you get to the end, and whenever you get into that dilemma, to me, excruciating ending, but that's the only reason that was even made.
That's a good way to put it.
Was that a Stephen King?
Yes. So Stephen King adaptation. That's not how the movie ended. That's not how the book ended.
Oh, okay.
So they changed it from how the book ended. But that's a good one. The one I haven't seen it, but I've absolutely everybody I've ever heard from. There's a movie from the 80s called Come and See. It's about I want to say it's Romanian. or it's a Polish or something like that. But it's a war film about for World War II about this kid and just trying to live through the horrors of everything that World War II has to offer. And I've heard it's just like you can't move after that movie's over. Everything just about it is just awful. Yeah, so that's probably the one I go to. Even though I haven't seen it, I know it's going to be bad when I get there.
Yeah. And just a side note for you folks, this was Brokeback was Ben's recommendation
Yes.
on this. And I watched it on a Sunday, and I work on the road. And right before I went on the road to be away from my family for 5 days,
Yep.
Gave me a sad movie. So I'm already away from my family whom I love for 5 days, and so that's a good mood to put
Sure.
in. 2, I was on the road with another guy for 5 days, and we traveled all over the place, and we're in quite remote locations. So
I mean,
overall, it left me confused, sad. I wasn't sure if I was in love at some point. Anne Hathaway never showed up.
There not a whole lot of Loreens in Childress, Texas. By the way, is
oh yes, I made a note of that.
There was in Childress, Texas. So obviously, I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Jake's up in Amarillo, Texas, and Childress is obviously a bypass on the way there. Anybody of any sort of success that lives in a small town blows my mind, especially Childress, Texas. They act like Childress is this swinging, swanky place.
Well,
compared to some places, I guess, but
yeah, but no, we got lots of kin from down there and everything.
It's true.
Yeah, I made a note of that. All right, this is my last one.
Okay.
I'll get you out of the hot box.
Okay.
And this was an improv. All right. Do you remember a specific theater going experience in West Texas? And there was a nearby overpass. I believe it was your birthday.
It was, yes. I'll tell you, I know exactly what it was. It was my I think I was 8. I think it was my 8th birthday. In Midland, Texas, this theater we used to go to had the overpass of Loop 250 right next to it. So when you're waiting in line for the movies, the overpass is right there. It's very common, no big deal. Well, one day, we're going for my birthday. We were going to watch Twister with 3 of my friends, including my best friend, who is the son of a preacher. And we are waiting to go into Twister as a man is on the overpass over our shoulder. And of course, we're looking at this. We're kids. And my mom is thinking...
Lights and sirens up there.
Lights and sirens, cops trying to talk him down. My mom is mortified at the potential of us seeing a death. And she says she looks over and sees all of us cheering, including my best friend, the preacher's son, jump, jump, jump. We're stupid young kids. But yes, I do have a fond memory of this. Luckily, the man did not jump. I like to think he got the mental health care he needed.
Hopefully so. They did get him down. He
yes.
did not jump.
But yes, I do have a fond. So is that where my movie going love started? Who can tell?
I think that's where it started. Yeah,
I'll take it.
It must have been actually. Yeah, when I was down there earlier this week, I went right past there
directly.
It's no longer a movie theater. It's a different strip mall or whatever. But yeah, I knew the place.
Well, the funny thing about it is we always called it the $2.50 theater because that's how much the tickets were back in the 90s. Like,
yeah,
makes us feel that much older.
Yeah, it was kind of, and that was kind of like the mall movie theater.
Yeah, that was the go-to. That was the one we went to more than any other. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I can take the hot box for next week.
The hot box.
I don't know how much. I don't know how I'm going to be able to take that each week, but
you're free to go.
All right, this is a good way to segue. into the ending of this film,
Yeah.
As Jake mentioned in his plot summary, it doesn't end well for Jack. Jack ends up dying, and Ennis is essentially contented to be alone, living a relatively solitary life. The interesting part about it is that whenever Ennis is on the phone with Lorene, getting the explanation for why it happened, she says he was changing a tire and it exploded in his face, causing him to drown in his own blood. While that explanation is coming, Ennis imagines an assault and murder of Jack in this field. I had posed this question to Jake as well. And essentially, is this in Ennis's mind, or is this probably what actually happened?
I think that's probably what happened. I mean, I think you can see the I don't know, whenever Anne Hathaway's explaining it, I mean, I think you can see it. And yeah, I think Ennis knows the most likely scenario. Man, that part is probably what hit me the most.
Absolutely.
That I mean, people couldn't live the way they wanted and do what they wanted, even though they're not hurting anyone else. Someone has to go, murder them.
Yes.
And then back then, I mean, it was covered up. Must have been a tire. Must have. And you can harken back to Jim Crow law days and stuff like that, and see countless examples of whenever black people
were lynched. Absolutely, yeah.
And it was just some other excuse was made. But
well, I mean, even earlier, whenever Ennis was talking about whenever he saw the lynching, the result of the lynching, he said, "As far as I know, my dad did it." It's like, as far as I know, it was him. Like, who knows? But yeah.
But once they showed that scene, it reminded me of a real life case, and I thought that was something important that this movie does.
I agree.
Highlight that that type of discrimination, that type of violence. This isn't completely a fictional story. I mean, this is based on something, and I think generally art reflects life. And but anyways, it reminded me of a case that I'd just like to go over, just to show that this kind of thing has occurred. Oddly enough, it was in Wyoming. But a young man's name was Matthew Wayne Shepard. He's born in 1976 and died in 1998. So he was a young college student in Casper, Wyoming, going to college. So on the night of October 6th, 1998, Shepard was approached by Aaron Russell Hint at the Fireside Lodge in Laramie. All three men were in their early 20s. McKinney and Henderson off to give Shepard a ride home. They subsequently drove him to a remote area and proceeded to rob, pistol whip, and torture Shepard, tying him to a barbed wire fence and leaving him to die. Many media reports contain the graphic accounts of the pistol whipping and his fractured skull. Reports described how Shepard was beaten so brutally that his face was completely covered in blood, except where it had partially been cleansed by his tears. So I'll just jump down. And so obviously he tragically died. I think there were other defenses raised, but I think it was pretty clear why he was targeted.
Yeah.
Fortunately, during this time, the suspects, McKinney and Henderson, were arrested and initially charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. Charges were later upgraded to first-degree murder. And it ends up that both were convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences.
I think there's a number of laws based off of this now because of this specifically.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, there were specific laws related to targeting people for their homosexuality. And the other thing I found on this, members of the Westboro Baptist Church,
The worst people in the world.
But they picketed his funeral with signs with slogans such as "Matt in hell" and "God." These are their words, not mine. God hates fags. Overall, like after that scene, I got so pissed.
Sure.
Having some knowledge on this and looking through it further. If any member of Westboro Baptist Church wants to target a gay guy or something like that, I offer myself as, or I'll just tell you I'm gay and come and see me, and we'll see which motherfuckers wind up tied to a goddamn barbed wire fence and who ends up bleeding to death. Come and get me, fucks.
And if anybody from Westboro Baptist Church, please feel free to
come and see me.
Yes, exactly.
Come to my place. I got something for you. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, it made me mad. Moving on.
That's the anger that this invokes. That's effective. That's why it was such an effective ending. It's so frustrating because of that specific reason. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it all comes together.
Goddamn, now I got to do so much fucking editing.
No, I'm probably not going to edit it. Why would I edit that out? That's it's such evocative thoughts, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, these hurting absolutely nobody, but of course they're different, or whatever stupid reasoning they have to come up with, and
they ain't bothering you. Leave me alone.
Nope, exactly. Well, everybody, I guess that's a good way to put a closing bow on this one. Jake, are there any other lasting thoughts besides threatening Westboro Baptist Church? What was your rating? What's your film rating?
Oh, so yeah, sorry, I have to give this like an in-between kind of rating. Usually I'm love it, kind of leave it, in between, whatever. I think it's beautifully filmed, beautifully acted. I think it told an important story at a time where that story needed to be told.
Yes.
I think it had a cultural impact when I can appreciate,
absolutely.
But yeah, very well done. Great movie. I probably don't ever want to see it again.
I get it.
It's just too sad, and then I rage against irrelevant Baptist church.
I personally, this is a 5-star movie for me. 5 out of 5. As a side note, I decided to, in prep for this, look at my movies from 2005. I was working at a movie theater at the time, so I decided, it's like, you know what? Why don't I try to watch every single movie that came out in the movie theaters that year? And I made it all the way to October before I missed a movie. It was Zathura, a Jumanji-based movie in space. Kristen Stewart's in it. So I've never seen it, but because of that, my numbers are very inflated. I have seen 146 movies from the year 2005. Brokeback Mountain ranks as number 2 for me on the list. So
For 2005?
yes, sir. So other movies, probably more along the lines of things you've seen. Walk the Line coming out in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
The Johnny Cash biopic. Great Oscar year in certain categories. The obviously Crash winning Best Picture kind of soured it for a lot of people. But Walk the Line, Good Night and Good Luck, about the Edward R. Murrow raging against Joseph McCarthy in the 60s, in the 60 Minutes. That's a great movie. Capote, about Truman Capote. Philip Seymour Hoffman winning his Oscar.
That was a great movie.
Yes, also the same year. So a lot of interesting films.
Blood, read it.
Oh, and probably one you have seen, Munich. Yes, another Spielberg movie. Yes. So pretty good Oscar year and pretty good year all around. But Brokeback Mountain's number 2 for me. I think that just about does it for this episode of The Film Critic and the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, on Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website at icecreamforfreaks.com. You can also follow my other writings on Cinema Scholars and The Film Experience. I just finished a piece ranking the male performances in LA Confidential. So if you ever get a chance, please feel free to check that out. Jake, where can the people find you?
Well, where you can find me is nowhere. Unless you're a member of the Westboro Baptist Church, hit me up. If you can I'll send you a GPS location and we can see how that ends up, big boy.
Make sure to follow the podcast.
Other than that, don't talk to me.
Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Check this out on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We'll catch you next time when we talk about another Best Picture winner, No Country for Old Men. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's going to be a great one. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Gracias.
Happy birthday, Kinsler.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?